toggling into speaker view on the upper right part of your screen is going to be the best viewing experience. And the chat on the bottom right, if you want to turn that on, that's also open. Please don't be shy. We'll drop your comments and questions in there, and we're going to grab as many as we can as we go along today. I want to thank everyone who tuned in for our last Master Advisor on all-inclusive travel with Sonia Weston and Melissa LaSalle. If anyone wants to rewatch that webinar, or if there are any advisors on the call who missed it, you can catch that whole thing on our YouTube channel. It's www.youtube.com/travelmarketreport. That page hosts all of our audio and video content. So we've done 35 of these Master Advisor sessions, and they're all available free on demand on that page. There's segments on ocean cruising, travel insurance, service fees, all those topics and more. They're all live on that page. And also on there, just because we're talking about river cruising today, is our check-in podcast. Our latest episode is with TPI's Jen Lee, and that's live now. But we also have episode 9 with AMA Waterways Kristen Karts, and that's available there too. Both conversations were really enjoyable for me, but Kristen's in particular focuses on river cruising, and that's apropos of today's conversation, so I did want to go ahead and plug that. Any likes, subscriptions, or comments on that page helps us build this community, so everything is very much appreciated. Okay, so let's get into the topic for today. Today, I'm very happy to welcome a pair of travel advisors to talk to us about the burgeoning river cruise line industry, including what's happening right now and what the expectations are for the next couple of years. I'm very happy to welcome Suzanne Bowering of Holiday Travel in Wakefield, Massachusetts, and Karen Quinn-Penzer of Quinn-Penzer Travel in Milford, Connecticut. So I want to say thank you, Suzanne and Karen, so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So today's topic is going to be focused on river cruising, but I do want to ask about something that's been in the headlines this past couple of weeks and seems to be the talk of the town in the travel advisor community, and that's the Delta variant. I'm wondering if you could share some of your insights on what you're hearing from clients about the Delta variant and if it's impacting your business at all. And Karen, I was hoping we could start with you.
Sure. The Delta variant. Basically, I think there's two types of clientele that I deal with, and there's the type that are very adventurous and they want to travel and they want to travel now. They're vaccinated, and yeah, there may be some that were adventurous a month ago that are not so adventurous now, but for the most part, those people are going to look for the destinations that they feel are the safest. You know, the level 4s concern them. But I've got to say that we were just in France for 2 weeks and it turned level 4 on the day we came back. So It's just, there's no rhyme or reason sometimes on when these things happen. But I've always said to people that if you want to travel this year, you have to be adventurous, you have to be flexible, and you have to be patient.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And Suzanne, I was hoping to hear from you too, because I know it's not so much the variant that's a cause of concern, but the conversations around the safety seems to have picked up recently. And I think that's what's the most concerning for some clients. And I'm wondering, what have you been hearing?
So we've got two distinct camps here. We've got one set of customers that are very excited that the masks are coming back because now they can wear their mask and they don't feel shamed. Yeah. And we've got other customers that are upset that masks are coming back because they don't want to wear them. So there's not too many in between. I'm finding that those that don't want to wear the masks are pushing off some of their travel, maybe to fourth quarter or into next year. And like I said, those that want to wear their masks, they're excited and they're ready to go.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is one thing I wanted to say, just because I know we're talking about it now, is I know Delta's bad news, but it's important to remember that we're still on the incline in terms of recovery. I'm sure there's going to be more bumps in the road, but Delta's very much a bump in the road that I think hopefully we'll be putting in our rearview mirror pretty soon. So let's go ahead and let's get into today's topic of river cruising. And just so we can put everything in context, I was hoping both of you could tell us a little bit about yourselves and a little bit about your agencies, and then we'll get right into the topic. And Suzanne, I was hoping you could kick us off on this question.
Sure. I own a small mom and pop agency, Main Street location, in Wakefield, Massachusetts. I've been here since 1984. So yeah, I started when I was 2 years old. Um, like I said, small office. I've got a few outside agents that I work with, but I'm the full-time person in the office. And I love it. I don't know what else I would do.
So I guess just a quick question, Suzanne, like so you have a brick and mortar location.
I am. Yep.
And was there any point during COVID where you considered that you would move away from a brick and mortar location?
Absolutely not. No, I have a prime location in my downtown. I get a lot of walk-ins. I get a lot of walk-bys looking at my window. We've got a deli next door to us that when families are waiting for loved ones to come join them for breakfast, they hang and kind of look in my window. So no, I have never even thought of it.
Yeah, that's great. I know I've spoken to a couple of advisors on this program about how beloved brick and mortar locations still, and I know there's a lot of talk about the shifting, but it's great to still hear those stories. Karen, I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure, Dan. We have a Dream Vacations franchise in Milford, Connecticut. I am the owner and chief cook and bottle washer.
Okay.
I do have 6 independent contractors or associates that work with us, and we do specialize in groups. We specialize in river cruising, exotics, expedition cruising, all inclusives, and ocean cruising. So different associates come with different niches, like 2 of them do expedition and exotics, for example. Another does family travel.
Okay. Yeah.
And we've had the business since 2013. I don't think I mentioned that.
Okay. And it's interesting. I mean, you just got back from France, and I'm hoping if we have time at the end, you can share some of those insights too, because I think that would be valuable for everybody on the call. But I do want to talk about river cruising because I know that's what was promised today. The first thing I want to do is just talk about what you both like most about river cruising, both as an advisor booking this segment and also as a consumer for the river cruises you've been on. What you like most about the experience? What do you like most about seeing destinations on a river cruise boat? And Karen, I was hoping we could start with you on this one.
Sure. In terms of the experience, it's really like a floating boutique hotel on the river, and it is so turnkey from an advisor's point of view because everything is handled by the river cruise line. From a consumer point of view, it's fabulous because if you're into food and wine, if you're into culture and history of Europe, and of course there are other river cruises outside of the continent, but primarily they're in Europe, then it's the perfect trip because it's all right there. And you don't have to pack and unpack every time you move to a different country. You just wake up on board the ship, look out your window, and you were in Austria before, and now you're in Germany. It's just the perfect trip.
And Suzanne, I'm assuming you share a lot of those sensibilities too. But if you want to give us your take on the question.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with Karen. I equate river cruises with comparing them to ocean cruise. It's like trying to see the eastern half of the U.S. on an ocean cruise. You just can't until you get into the country and see the little towns and the mountains and just those areas that you can't see, and you only have to unpack once, and that's the key thing about it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, unpacking once I think is key for a lot of consumers too. And you mentioned the difference between river cruising and ocean cruising, and what I've heard an advisor describe it to me as is a journey to the destination versus a journey through the destination. And yeah, I mean, a lot of people I've heard a lot of consumers have their first river cruising experience and just not wanting to do anything else after.
Yeah, they're hooked.
Yeah, exactly. So let's get into the demographics of your typical river cruise client. I'm curious, I mean, the age range, the price range for your typical clients, what's that like? And do they overlap with any other segments? Suzanne, do you want to start us off on this one?
Yeah, so I have I think a little bit younger demographic than most. Mine is usually between 40s and 60s.
Okay.
And I built it up through escorting a couple of groups, and it was just word of mouth. It wasn't that I put it out there. And I was just kind of like the first one that I went on, I just kind of handpicked some people and said, I'm going on this river cruise. Would you like to join me? And everybody jumped on. And so, and I targeted a younger crowd just because that is what I wanted. I wanted that demographic.
That's interesting because I know river cruise lines have sometimes struggled getting a younger crowd on board. What were those conversations like for you? Do you have any advice for people speaking to maybe an older millennial or a younger client that hasn't experienced river cruising, that doesn't know about the segment, and that's just might be put off by the idea of it? Do you have any advice for advisors, Suzanne?
Maybe try a shorter cruise. Some of the cruise lines now have a 4 or 5 night, so they don't feel like they're trapped, with grandma and grandpa. And have them bring some friends. If it's another couple that travels with them, and they don't hit it off with anybody else on the cruise, on the boat, then they at least got their friends to hang with them. But I explained about the different, there's walking tours, and it's not just on a bus looking at the different attractions. You're out there and you can be as physical as you want. And that definitely goes towards the younger crowd.
Yeah. And I know there's wellness and active excursions are focused out of a lot of those suppliers now too. So it's definitely, I mean, I've only been on one, but it's definitely not just exclusively for an older crowd. Karen, do you want to jump in on this one?
Sure. I would say that for my groups, they tend to be 55 plus, 55 to 78, 80 even. For my FIT, it can definitely skew younger than that. And there are river cruise lines that have very active functions or options rather, like hiking and biking, kayaking, etc. And that appeals to a younger demographic as well. But I think what they both have in common beyond age is a love for history, a love for culture, and definitely if they're foodies, it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
The cuisine and the wine is wonderful.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, what you mentioned before, I think that's the tagline for Uniworld is as a floating boutique hotel, and I think there's no better way to describe it as to be able to be in the center of all these amazing cities and not having to unpack is just an incredible experience. So let's talk about river cruise sales right now, because I know 2020 was tough for every single segment except maybe save a few, and river cruising is definitely a part of that. I mean, what are your clients saying for 2021, 2022 and beyond right now? Are they pent up and ready to book, or are they still awaiting sort of what's going to happen with COVID and restrictions and things like that? Karen, do you want to start on this one?
Yeah, sure. I back in 2020, actually, I started selling groups into 2021. And I have some, record-breaking business for 2020 for 2022, because I was moving 2020 groups into 2021, as a lot of your viewers are, I'm sure, very experienced with doing. That's just the way it was during COVID. But I started selling groups on river cruises for 2022 in 2020, and then also into 2021. And so my sales are up substantially. I mean, you can't even talk about how far up they are from 2021, because anything I've sold in 2021 on river cruises was basically moved from 2020. Okay. So it's substantial, it's record breaking. And I would love to now focus on 2023. I'm just not there yet. So yeah, it's
okay.
Good.
Okay. And I'm curious, how comfortable were you with the cancellation, like how is these flexible cancellation policies impacting your bookings? Do consumers feel more confident putting money down now that they know that they'll be able to cancel if things do change in sort of the COVID environment?
Absolutely. So one of the things when COVID started was I had to sort of grasp that my role as a travel advisor had changed from making people happy to making people whole, because everybody was understandably quite upset and panic stricken about what was going to happen to their trip. So, it was up to us to make sure that they canceled at the right time if the cruise line hadn't canceled yet, so they wouldn't get penalties, or that they would get the most bonus for the money that they had invested. But going forward, one of the biggest concerns is how flexible it is. And of course, that also leads to travel insurance. But yeah, the flexible policies help quite a bit.
Yeah, and I want to let you answer it too, Susan, but I have a couple of comments and I promise I would get to them. So let me just get to them really quickly. We have Sharon, who says that when we were speaking about active and younger demographics, Avalon and their excursion choices are more appealing to a younger client. And then we have Alana says that she has clients that can't wait for river cruises next month, both on the Columbia and Snake River and in Europe on the Danube. And she said all are vaccinated. So it's good to see there's movement on river cruises, both from both of you and from everyone in the chat too. But Susan, do you want to jump in on the question about sort of how your sales have been, both for 2021, for the latter half of the year, and then for next year and then beyond?
So like Karen, I was having excellent sales for 2020. And obviously everybody canceled, or we canceled everybody. Nobody moved to 21 of my customers. So I've still got a lot of people that have credits that are planning for 2022. So mine was just a little bit different. I don't have anybody at all going to Europe for river cruises this year. Mine are all for next year or holding out for 23.
Okay. And do you see any trends in your booking, Susan? Do you see any trends with destinations or rivers or itineraries that are particularly popular right now? Do you see a lot? My question, I guess, would also be: do you see a lot of your clients who have sailed the Danube and sailed the Rhine and are excited to get back because they feel most comfortable with an itinerary they've experienced before?
I'm finding a lot, because it's still a new market.
Yeah.
It's not like the ocean cruises where there's not a new island that's just popping up overnight that you can go to. So a lot of people are doing the Danube. A lot of my customers want Budapest, either pre or post. And they just hear about it. They read about it, and they're just excited to try and get out and to get onto the rivers.
Yeah, exactly. And I see we have a poll question up about, and it looks like we have a mix between about a third of everyone says that their sales are higher, a third says they're low, and a third says they're same. So there is a lot of mix. And I know there's a lot of advisors here who specialize in river cruises, and some of them, so there's some advisors who maybe don't. So I think it's interesting that people are having different experiences with this. So I want to ask about a couple of your personal experiences now, just because we're a little bit into this conversation right now. I'm curious if you could talk to me about your experience during COVID, and if there was one thing or person that changed you personally and why. And Susan, I was hoping we could start with you on this one.
One person or thing, not necessarily. I guess as with everybody, you struggled to get your customers canceled, or rebooked or refunded, or just talk them off the wall. And I'm assuming, like most everybody, once you did all of that, probably by May, June, it was dead. It was dead in the office. And I said, well, why am I sitting here? So I did a lot of travel last year, from July 1st through the first week of October. I spent 45 days out in the national parks. I did 4 different trips going out, and I could have never done that with COVID. So good news, bad news is, bad news is I had no business. Good news that it was so inexpensive to travel and beef up my knowledge of the national parks, just because I figured that everybody's going to stay local in the next, or stay domestic in the next, year and a half from last year. So I was very fortunate to be able to do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of worse places, I guess, to spend a quarantine period than the national parks.
Yeah.
And Karen, do you want to jump in on this one?
Sure. What I would say is the one thing that changed my life was learning about using Zoom to do virtual vacation webinars for my clients. And the person who turned me on to that really is my BDM from a waterways day in Kerchi, Horan, who just really embraced this concept. And it was the first one I did was with her. And that was the first group that was a successful result from that in 2022. And that was the Gems of Southeast Europe on the Lower Danube, which is a growing trend in terms of rivers, by the way, because you're going through 5 different countries that most people have not even been to. So.
Okay. Well, that's great. That is great. I see. I have a few. I want to get back into the river cruise line topic. I have a few questions in the chat, and one of them I'm not familiar with, and I'm unsure if either you will be able to answer it, but I'm going to ask it in hopes you will be. Irene wants to know if there's any current river cruise companies that can compare or is similar to the Peter Delman River and Ocean Cruises. Are either of you familiar with Peter Delman?
No.
No.
I've heard of it, but that's it.
All right. Well, I'm very sorry, Irene, but we were unable to answer your question. We have a couple other comments about people who have just returned from river cruises over the last couple of weeks and have either had clients reach out to them and saying they had a great time or they had their own great time. So it is nice to see again the segment moving. But I want to get back into sort of the bookings of river cruise lines, and I'm curious if either you had advice on how you can convert clients into river cruise clients. Suzanne, we spoke a little bit about this in the beginning with the younger demographic, but when you're introducing the product to someone who may be used to ocean cruises or maybe used to tours, do you have a process or do you have any advice to share?
It's you've got to go on one yourself, so that you can speak first about it. The first river cruise that I went on back in 2017, it was a short one. It was a Christmas market from Zurich to Frankfurt, or Basel to Frankfurt. And that was the one that I just talked to friends about it. And everybody posted on social media. So friends of friends of friends of friends that knew that we were all on there. It was just, a tidal wave of it. And that helped. And it helped that they were all on the younger age bracket. It's, I guess you got to kind of figure out what they're looking for. And once again, I equated that you're seeing parts of Europe that you're not going to see by an ocean cruise, or that you're only unpacking once. And a lot of people have the fear, oh, I'm going to get seasick. And you explain to them, and it's a real fear. They don't realize, it's just in their mind. They hear the word cruise and they just lump everything together. So I explained to them that you're in a river, and there is no seasickness on it. And I had 2 people with me on that first cruise that were deathly afraid. And I said to them, when you come home, if you were sick any of the days, I personally will give you back your money for this cruise, because that's how confident I was that they weren't going to get sick. And they came home and they've talked about it ever since, that they weren't sick and they enjoyed being able to get out on the water and feel comfortable. Yeah. So you just got to, once again, experience it yourself and then just kind of figure out what's holding them back.
Yeah, I think from my knowledge, the average speed of a river ship is 8 to maybe 11 miles per hour. So it is, I mean, maybe it's insensitive because I laughed at that, but it is a very slow moving ship, and the rivers are not like the oceans. But Karen, I was hoping you could share your insights too. And I'm wondering, sure, Karen, if there are any common questions you get from first time river cruise line guests.
There are a couple of different types of people that love river cruising. A big type of individual, or one big category is those that don't want to go on ocean cruises, have no interest in ocean cruises because they feel they're too big, too impersonal, too many people. I'm going to get sick, blah, blah, blah. And as Suzanne said, you know, it's very easy to dispel that fear on a river cruise. One of the comments I always make is because I know if they drink wine, you know, I'll use this. I'll say, you can put your glass of wine on the railing on the sun deck and it will not spill. So they laugh, but you know, it's true. It's like, there's like no rock and roll motion. I mean, there's some sound when you go through the locks, which we can talk about later, but there's no real seasick motion whatsoever. And then there's the people who do go on ocean cruises that want something different. You know, they haven't been to Europe. They've heard about river cruises from their friends. They're retired. They have more time to spend. They're going to Europe for the first time, or maybe the second time. And the first time they went, they were young and they were backpacking, and now they're retired and they want something a little bit more refined and more all-inclusive and more upscale. So
yeah, exactly. And we have, just because you mentioned, I mean, the wine, I know there's wine cruises, Karen, because we do have a question in the chat about theme cruises. I'm not sure if either one of you want to grab this, but Irene wants to know if are there any theme cruises available now with river cruises. And I know I've written a bit about them, but I was wondering if either of you want to jump in here.
Sure.
Go ahead, Susan.
So for 2021, it kind of depends on what's left. Some of the Christmas markets are left, but in general, you can do a tulip cruise through Holland. I took a group doing that. You've got your wine cruises, you've got your history. There are a lot of different themes out there, and if you can't find one, you can almost tailor one to your group.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's a lot of wine cruises as well on multiple cruise lines. AMA Waterways, Quasi Europe, Uniworld. I know all have them. I'm sure Avalon does as well. And Avalon also is known for their beer cruises through Amsterdam and Belgium.
Yeah.
And then there's Jewish heritage cruises on 2 or 3. They're starting ancestry cruises. It's just non-ending.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many themed ones. I see the chat is going crazy right now with everyone dropping themed ones in. But like you both mentioned, I know there's beer ones, there's genealogy ones. I think Uniworld does a Normandy one. I know Avalon does a storyteller series where they bring aboard a famous author. I think Gillian Flynn of Gone Girl was scheduled for this fall. So I don't know. I think we could spend the rest of the time speaking about theme cruises, but there are definitely a ton of theme cruises if that's what your clients are looking for. So I want to talk about booking windows now, because I know that's sort of a hot topic of conversation among advisors. What is your current booking window now for river cruises? And then how does that compare to your clients booking other segments? And Susan, I was hoping we could start with you on this one.
So my river cruises, as I mentioned, I don't have anything for this year. Everything is next year, booked, confirmed for next year, and then questioning 23. Compared to rest of my bookings that aren't river cruise, I'm finding they're either traveling in the next month, maybe 5-6 weeks, or they're traveling first quarter of next year. I don't have a lot of that mid-range. I think people are either just said, get me out of here, I'm ready to go now, or let's just wait until the winter and we'll get out of here. So
Yeah,
my first quarter is a little low right now.
I'm just curious, those people who are anxious to travel and are booking in tight, compressed booking windows, where is it a lot of domestic destinations, a lot of Caribbean and Mexico and things like that?
Yeah, Caribbean, Mexico, Florida, Myrtle Beach.
Okay. And Karen, I'm curious what your clients are like, both for river cruise line booking windows and then for all the other segments.
Sure. I do river cruising and luxury about a year to 2 years out.
Okay.
Most of the most attractive deals on river cruises are 18 months or more out. And that's how I was successful in booking 2022 groups, including one in September of 2022 in 2020, because they were offering such rich value add. The close in travel that I'm getting now is primarily new clients that are finding me on Google.
Wow.
And they call and they say, I want to get away. Where can I go? I want to go 3 weeks from Saturday. And I've never had that kind of business before. My typical ocean cruising or let's say escorted tour business or all inclusive was usually 6 months to 9 months or longer, because a lot of people book with me for special occasions. I do a lot of honeymoons. I do, big birthdays, that type of thing, anniversaries. So
yeah, groups are sort of an ideal segment for river cruise lines too. It seems like both of you have mentioned groups, and I'm curious if you could give us your take on that. Why do groups fit so perfectly into the river cruise line segment? And Karen, do you want to start us off?
sure. Yeah, it's a very intimate environment, and it's an opportunity for people to engage within a group on a world stage. You are going to various destinations that they may not have been to before, but they feel comfortable for a couple reasons. One is the group, and the second is the river cruise environment, that it's more manageable. As we said before, it's really easy. You don't have to pack and unpack, but going as a group has a lot of advantages, because a lot of people want to make their trip last longer. If they're finally going, they want to do a pre and a post, and our groups put that together for them. So that's part of it as well.
Okay, and then Susan, is that what you've seen too, booking groups, and then what your clients come back and tell you they've liked most about the trips?
Yeah, I do a lot of groups that I take along with me, come along. First of all, the money's great in it. When you get your TCs, depending on what the program is with the cruise line that you're working with. But I also say that, if there's a couple of couples going and the ladies want to go off shopping and the guys want to go off and who knows what, sit at a pub and drink beer, or vice versa, the guys want to go shopping. They don't feel like they have to do it with each other. They may make other friends, or I'll always tell them, you can hang with me. If I'm going off and I'm doing an excursion, you're more than welcome to join me. So they have a familiar face with me, or you can stay, and sleep in late. I just tell them that your vacation, whatever you want to do, but there's other friendly faces there, that you don't have to be by yourself, or you can be by yourself. You walk into the dining room and you don't have to sit by yourself because someone from the group is bound to be there. Or you want to stay up late and listen to the piano player, but your husband wants to go to bed. You're not by yourself. It's just that comfort level.
Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned how easy it is to see these cities being on a river ship. And I mean, when I was lucky enough to be on one, and I remember just getting off and on board in several cities a number of times, which would be almost impossible to do on an ocean ship, to get off, to disembark, to re-embark, to disembark. It truly is a hotel feel like that, that's moving slowly along the river.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a question in here about favorite suppliers when it comes to river cruise lines, and I don't want to have anyone rank suppliers, but I'm curious if both of you could share your thoughts on if you're an advisor who's looking into the segment for the first time, who maybe have a specialty somewhere else, where would you start to look, and what lines should maybe be on your list that are going to be best to sort of send to your clients? And Karen, do you want to start us off?
Well, I've got to say that both AMA Waterways and Avalon offer a lot of advantages to a travel advisor in terms of fam trips. They also offer excellent group terms, and I'm not saying that other cruise lines don't.
But these are the ones you're most familiar with.
These are the two that I'm most familiar with in terms of fam cruises and at very reasonable rates. And then when you're escorting, AMA, for example, will give you a TC and possibly a travel agent rate, depending on what sailing you're going on. I'm not sure, Suzanne, you might know if Avalon does that as well, but it is really important, I think, to just get started with one or the other. Build a relationship with the BDMs from those river cruise lines, and any river cruise line really in your area. So that's important.
Yeah.
Take the training.
And Suzanne, is that I'm curious if you have any other thoughts?
Yeah, no, I use a lot of Avalon. I've also used AMA. I know there's a million other ones out there, but it's like anything, try to concentrate on what is your clientele. Is your clientele a mid-market? Are they an upscale? Not a backpacking, but what type of clientele do you have? And concentrate on that. And as Karen kind of alluded to work and try and keep your numbers, like with any business, keep your numbers with a particular line so that you can get the higher commission, that you can get the TCs. I also talk about, the backup. Sometimes a customer will come in and they've got a cruise line I've never heard of. And I'll be honest with them. I'll say, I've never heard of this cruise line. I said, I don't know anything about them, or I've never sold them, but the one that I work with, I've got backup. So if something goes wrong, that's when you need the support. And I have the support with the cruise lines that I use. And I also explained to them that river cruising in Europe, a little bit different than ocean cruising, is that the rivers could be too high or the rivers could be too low. And you need a company that's got your back, that all of a sudden, if they need to be bussed from point A to point B, who has the infrastructure set, that they're not scrambling looking for, a school bus to get you around, that there are companies out there that have the background that can do that easily. So it's just the things that customers don't think about, and they just look at the pictures and maybe sometimes the price, and that's, you have to use your sales to put them probably in the right direction.
Yeah, the water level issue was always a huge topic of conversation towards the end of summer pre-COVID. That was one of the big worries before we had to worry about a virus, was the water level issues in Europe, because that could hugely impact a river cruise. But I know each line has their own policies and how they deal with that too. So that's important for advisors to just keep aware of. As well. I see a lot of comments in the chat about different lines, about Scenic, Uniworld, Avalon Talk, a lot of different ones. We have a chat message from someone mentioning U.S. lines, because I know we haven't touched upon that. We've spoken a lot about Europe, but American Queen, American Cruise Line, stuff like that. So there are a lot of options to be had in this segment. And that's what I want to also talk to you and ask both of you about, how new products coming out, do they have any impact on your ability to boost your audience or your ability to talk to your clients about booking if something brand new comes out? Because I know AMA just recently announced a new itinerary on the Magdalena in Colombia, and I know Uniworld has a new sailing in Italy that just recently debuted. When river cruises add different itineraries like that, can you use that for client outreach? Is that a tool at your disposal? Karen?
Absolutely. I was just on not a river barge, I keep saying that, a canal barge cruise with Quasi Europe with 18 of my clients. And that was like a little bubble trip because we chartered the ship. It was a ship for 22 people. But AMA Waterways announcement about the Magdalena River in Colombia gave me the perfect opportunity to say to my clients, hey, guess what is coming in 2023? Can you believe this? And everybody is waiting for the September, sales and all the information, because all I could give them was a real top line on the biodiversity of the area and culture and food. But everybody was sort of intrigued with the concept. So that's terrific. And then for the US market, I think it's becoming more interesting. with the rivers and the Great Lakes, especially with Viking coming into the market. And that's on my bucket list, and my, business plan to do a group on one of the rivers in 2023. And I'm already doing some FIT business on
Okay.
that.
And
in that
Susan,
area.
is that something you feel too? Are these new products having any impact on your business?
Yes, definitely. Especially sometimes with the newer ships and they come on, you can say, this is a brand new ship. You'll be on the first, the first
Yeah.
month or the first year of it. And everybody wants to be the first.
Yeah.
They may have friends that have sailed before or have talked about it, but when they can go back and brag that, we're on a brand new ship, or this is the first time that a river cruises a ship is or boat is pulled into a particular port. It's just the bragging rights that you want to try and upsell.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that when we're speaking about river cruises, we're speaking about the destinations that the river cruise is sailing through. Like, I know the difference between marketing an ocean cruise and river cruise line is extremely stark, despite them both having the word cruise in their names. I mean, it's going to be rare that you're going to be marketing a ship, correct? Or it's going to be more appropriate to market the destination for your client. Is that what both of you feel?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead. Oh, someone told. Oh, sorry. So we have about 10 minutes left. Please, if there's any other questions, please drop them in the chat. I want to give Karen and Susan some time to wrap up at the end, but I do want to ask you, Karen, because you just returned from France. I was just hoping, because everyone's wondering about international travel restrictions now, if you could just give us a little bit about how difficult it was to put a group together to go into France, what hurdles you faced, and any tips for advisors who are currently working on something like that right now.
Okay. So this was a trip from 2020, July of 2020, that was moved to 2021. And if you had asked me in April or even the beginning of May whether it was going to go this year, I would have said, I'm not so sure. Then Macron announced that he was opening up to the US market. Okay? And all of a sudden we were a go. So it was also dealing with everybody. Well, is it really going to be okay? I mean, some people were just like, great, I can't wait, I'm going. And then other people were like, well, is it going to be safe? Is everybody going to be vaccinated? Do I have to wear a mask? So it was dealing with that upfront stuff. But the only people that canceled were people that had illness issues, and they were real illness issues. So we went as a group of 18 on a charter ship for 22. And although we were in a bubble, so to speak, on this barge, and, in our own little bubble for excursions, we came into Paris. We were there for 2 days. We were definitely not in a bubble in Paris. And then after the barge, we went to the Loire Valley in a chateau. And then it was like going to chateaus, and which chateaus managed the crowd control well and which didn't. And those that didn't, we would just leave. That only happened once. Then half of us went to Normandy. And again, we were not in a bubble, but I had hired a private guide driver for the 8 of us. So yes, we were sort of in a bubble there, but you're going to places like Mont Saint-Michel. So there's a lot of people there. The biggest challenge, I've got to say, was just getting everybody comfortable and comfortable with nobody's really comfortable with it, but getting everybody scheduled for the COVID-19 test for the return to the US, because people were leaving at different aspects or at different points along the way for the trip. So that was a bit challenging. But aside from that, the mask wearing, people have to be comfortable with wearing masks inside museums, for example, inside wineries. Of course, when you're tasting the wine, you take your mask off. Of course, the airplane. But all these people were. So it went very well. Huge sigh of relief after it was over. So that it was done. We actually went, yay. So, yeah.
So I just have a quick question, because I see some others come in the chat, and we're going to dive back into those. But what did Paris feel like when you were there? I mean, did it feel like empty of tourists? Did it feel like Paris typically feels?
No, it did not feel empty. It felt a little different depending on what part of Paris you were in.
Okay.
The biggest difference I found was when you started walking from destination to destination and saw a number of shuttered restaurants.
Okay.
To me, that was the biggest in-your-face difference.
Yep.
And the other difference was that, and before, I don't know that you needed timed entrance into the Musée d'Orsay and the Louvre, depending on when the last time you went to Paris was, but now you do. You need advance timed entries, for example. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, I really appreciate that. I'm sure that's valuable for everyone on the call, too. And Susan, we have a question in the chat, and I was hoping you could take this one. It's about pre and post cruise excursions for river cruises. What's your advice on that? Marla wants to know, do you recommend you take the cruise lines pre and post cruise extensions, or do you book them separately for your clients?
It depends on the comfort level and the experience of my customers. If it's a newbie that hasn't traveled to Europe, maybe going into a country that they're not familiar with the language and the price isn't exorbitant, I will definitely add on the cruise lines pre or post. If they've been there before and they want to go off a little bit on their own, once again, I'll price it and see which is the better deal for them. For either pre or post, obviously, like most of you, I try to keep them at the same hotel unless for some reason they want to switch, just so they're not packing, unpacking. But it's just the comfort level of the traveler as to what I feel they can handle. I don't want it to be stressful. I want it to be seamless for them.
And for you, is pre and post a common thing with river cruises? We spoke about the booking windows being a bit compressed for certain trips earlier, but do clients now tend to want to take those longer excursions into Europe? Are they interested in extending a 7-day sailing into a 10-day or 14-day kind of trip?
I don't want to say make them, but I don't give them a choice until they say no, at least one pre-night. Okay. And then I try to talk them into more depending on what it is. Sometimes, I should say 99% of the time they do that one pre-night. The post-night, that varies. Sometimes they say, I just want to get home. I'm going to get off the ship and I just got to get home. Or I really only have a week. I'm stretching it by doing a pre-night. I really got to come home. So there's no hard and fast rule, except for that I just put that pre-night in and don't give them the chance to say no.
And I mean, does it have any impact on your end when you're booking either through the cruise line or by yourself when it comes to your commission? Because I know one of the big things about river cruise lines is the sort of all-inclusive fare lends itself to be positive for travel advisor commission. And does that ever make you want to continue to book extras through the river cruise line through the supplier as opposed to doing it yourself, or does that not really impact it?
Doesn't impact it. At that point, a 1-night hotel or a 2-night hotel, the difference in commission isn't going to make or break it. It's more the ease and the level for the customer. Okay.
And Karen, anything you want to add on the pre and post discussion?
Yeah, I find more and more people wanting to do the pre and post, especially with my groups. We have a group going to the Lower Danube, I think that I referenced before, and out of 32 people, I think 28 are doing both the pre and the post.
Wow.
And the other 4 or 6, I'm losing track of numbers, are doing at least the pre. So, and that's an instance where I'm going with the cruise line. Often I will just sort of shake things up a bit. A couple of years ago, I did the Rhine and I tacked on the Glacier Express and the Bernina Express through Switzerland with my group. And I did that through Rail Bookers, for example. Okay. And that went well, but it's a lot easier. I'm going to tell you this, when you're escorting the group, it's a lot easier to do it through the cruise line.
Okay.
It's more turnkey.
Okay. Well, we're going to wrap up here. If anyone else has any other questions, drop them in the chat and maybe we can answer them. But I do want to give both of you just a chance to wrap up. If there's anything else you want to add, anything you want to say, And I want to thank you both ahead of time for joining me today for this hour or so. I really do appreciate it. I know how valuable everyone's time is, not just both of you, but everyone in the chat and everyone on the call too. So thank you, everybody. And Susan, is there anything you wanna add to the discussion?
No, just get out there and get on a ship.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a short one and you can't do pre-post, you just got to make it a long weekend. You can't explain it to customers until you've been on one, and it is so much different than an ocean cruise. But you just got to get out there and do it.
Yeah, and exactly. Talk to your BDMs that want you to get on board because they know the experience is so unique that you'll want to sell it and recommend it. Karen, anything to add?
Yeah, the first time I learned that commission was commissioned with a comma, my antennae went up, and I said, okay, I've got to go on a fam trip and find out what this is about. So for one river cruise, you probably earn the same amount as 5 ocean cruises. You know, that is sort of a general comment, because obviously the luxury cruise lines are going to be a different ratio, but I'm talking the contemporary lines. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you both so much for your time and your advice and your energy today. Thank you, everyone in the chat. For everyone out there, please stay safe. If you want to rewatch this, it'll be uploaded later today. And I hope to see you all very soon. So have a good week and rest of your weekend.